Well, hey guys, good to see everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Scott. I'm with Ariane. This nomadic idea, all about traveling the country in a vintage Airstream, but not just any Airstream. It's an Airstream Argosy. And one of the reasons why we bought an Argosy was you could paint them. In fact, the Argosy was kind of a experimental model for Airstreams back in the 70s, and they have a lot of historical value and they're kind of fun to redo. So one of the number one questions that we asked through our journey of our renovation process, and probably the question that we see most asked, whether it's Facebook groups, whether it's on Airstream forums, is how do you paint it? What kind of paint do you use? Technology sure has come a long way. So we're going to briefly kind of go through how we painted it, what we're going to use to do the base coat and the final coat, and our secret place to go. So one of the things that make the Argosy obviously so unique is it's made out of aluminum, but it also has two galvanized steel end caps on the front and the back. So it's two completely different kinds of metals. Not only is the Argosy made out of aluminum, but in some cases in the 70s it was made from recycled aluminum or repurposed aluminum. And in some cases, when they stripped it off an aircraft, they reuse the aluminum for some of the Argosys. So you never really know what kind of aluminum you're going to get. So when it comes to painting your Argosy, there's really two approaches, okay? One is to have it professionally done. That can go anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 to have the paint baked on and have it professionally painted by professional auto body painters. The other way is literally you can just take regular paint and a roll brush and just roll the paint on, which a lot of people do. I've seen Airstreams painted for as little as $165. Well, we're not going that route, but what I'm going to show you is exactly what products we use, how we did it, and the advantages of doing it the way we did it, in hopes that this might kind of give you a benchmark on either whether you want to go high, whether you want to use what we used, or even go cheaper than what we did. Okay, the very first thing you have to think about when you're painting metal is what kind of metal is it? What kind of paint can I use so the paint adheres to the metal? In the Argosy case, we have two different kinds of metal. We have galvanized steel and we have aluminum. So some of the older ways, or some of the auto body paint guys will tell you that the very first thing you have to do to paint metal is you have to use a self-etching primer. Now, this is taking in consideration that you have completely stripped the old paint off of the Argosy. Stripping the Airstream Argosy is a very tedious task. Especially when it's sunny out. I pulled it back in the shade because I feel like being pressed up against metal when it's 90 something degrees outside. I feel like I'm being cooked like a chicken. A lot of people paint right over the old paint, which is fine. We stripped it, so we took it down to the bare aluminum and the bare galvanized steel, because our galvanized steel end caps had some rust on it, so we wanted to kind of get away or clear the cancer so the rust didn't spread, which was probably much harder work than actually just painting it in the first place. But we stripped it all the way down. We took the paint off of everything. So kind of let's get into the whole stripping method first before we get into the paint.
So we knew that the old paint had to come off, and in order to do that, we had to figure out how we were going to strip the paint. Probably one of our most challenging parts up front, because we chose to do it before we really got into the rawness of undoing the Airstream and tearing it from the ground up. So we used a product called Citrus Strip. It's not that easy to say after a long day of work on the Airstream. This was the lifesaver for us, truly. We found out that the instructions really undersold how much product you had to use, so we underbought initially and had to go back in and buy more once we got a system down. So we used a sponge and a plastic scraper to get all the paint off. Apply this as heavily as you can, very heavily. When we applied it really thin, as the directions tell you to, you'll learn that you only get probably about 3/4 of it up, and then you have to go back. So make it easy on yourself. Lather the sponge up as much as you can, apply it as heavily as you can, and it'll come off so quickly in about 8 minutes. That was a huge lifesaver for us once we learned the system. So one of the other lessons that we learned the hard way, save you a little bit of time and headache in the long run, is do not apply in direct sun. You definitely want full on shade, or a shady day, or even a just an overcast day where you're not hitting any sun on your surface. It will bake on there and it will be impossible to get off.
Of course, once you get all the paint off of your Argosy, then, and after you've gotten the rust off, you've cleaned it, you've got all the dirt off, the one thing that you want to do next is you want to put some sort of etching primer on your Argosy. Two different kind of metals will create a little bit of a issue. So one of the things with the end cap, because it's galvanized steel, what most auto body guys will tell you is that you have to use etching primer, then you sand that down, you use a filler primer, you sand that down. Well, instead of buying two different products, Rustoleum makes a product called surface primer, and surface primer is what we use to paint our galvanized steel end caps on our Argosy. And what it is, it's an etching primer and a filler primer all in one. It's super easy to apply. You can apply it on with a roller, or you can apply it on with a brush. You can also spray it on. But what makes it really kind of cool is that after the primer goes on, you only have to do all of your sanding one time. So you can go from a 120 grit sandpaper, then to a 220 grit sandpaper, and then to a 330 grit sandpaper to get a really super smooth finish. We put 2 coats on it. You can put more coats if you want, but 2 coats on our steel end caps were fine. It dries really super quick, and I mean quick. In fact, you can put your second coat within 60 minutes of applying this primer. It dries really super quick, and it was really easy to sand. I will say this though, once you sand it, man, you better have some good ventilation, because there's dust everywhere after you sand this thing. So wash it off really good once you start sanding. I would really cover up some of your windows, cover up some of the other things that you don't want to. Close all the windows of the Airstream so that dust doesn't get into your Airstream. But this Rustoleum surface primer was a godsend in painting the steel end caps. So after we did the end cap, it was time to prime the Airstream. So we went with a product that is tried and true for aluminum boats. John boats, any kind of old fishing boats, people that wanted to restore those or repaint them. Because the one thing about the marine world or the boat world is they know what works with water. And so we went with a company called Topside Marine Primer. And this primer is special primer that adheres specifically to aluminum. And that's what we wanted. We wanted something that we knew was going to work. And if it's good for the marine world and the boat world, it was good enough for our aluminum Airstream, because after all, it's going to be in a lot of elements and a lot of weather. So we painted the whole Airstream with Topside primer specifically for aluminum. The nice thing about the Topside Marine primer is that it's oil-based. And what's so cool about the oil-based primers is that they're going to adhere to the metal a lot better, but in the long run, when you go to do your base coat also has to be an oil-based type paint, and that's what's going to give you your really super shiny finish, whether you bake it on, whether you spray it on, or whether you roll it on. That's the type of paint that you want for your Argosy, a really good oil-based paint. We put 2 coats of that primer on there. The Topside Marine primer is sold in quarts, and you can buy that on Amazon. Of course, all of the stuff, we're going to put links on our video right below, so you can click on the link. We're not saying to buy it, but you can also, if you're doing an Argosy, man, it really helps with the research, because those question and answers on Amazon really helped us make our decision. Okay, then the next big decision was paint. Okay, what are we gonna use to paint? We've got it primed. We've got the end caps primed with the Topside Marine primer, which was really cool. So the end caps are primed, the aluminum is primed. What are we gonna use now? We went with the Topside Marine paint because that is also an oil-based paint. The cool thing about the oil-based paint is that it has a very glossy finish to it. And so the oil-based paint with the oil-based primer is a perfect complement to each other. And when I put on this Topside Marine paint, oh, it just shined. It has such a shiny glow. So what you can do with oil-based enamel paint, you can wax it, wash it, and it gives that really nice protective finish. And of course, all of this, you have the decision on whether you want to roll it on or whether you want to spray it on. Of course, spraying it on, you're going to have to put a little paint thinner in there, but you can roll this stuff on too, which makes it, you know, that might make it cost effective for you, or it might just, you know, make it easier for you to do if you don't have a compressor and you don't have the tools for a spray situation. So those are really the 3 basic paints that we used to completely paint our Argosy for a very reasonable cost. Very reasonable. We are going to paint the whole Argosy for about $350, $370, but it's high quality paint, and that's the key. So the first half of our Airstream is painted with Topside Marine paint. It's an oil-based enamel paint that gives it a really beautiful shiny gloss, at the same time protects the aluminum. The undercover is a Topside Marine primer, and of course you can buy these in different colors, but we bought it white. And then the steel end caps are done with Topside surface primer. That's both an etching primer and a filler primer that you can sand. Of course, that's painted on then with the Topside Marine white paint. And then of course, then the bottom side is, oh, well, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Yeah, that's our that's kind of like our secret weapon. So what we will be going to is a Sherwin-Williams product. That is, Sherwin-Williams has a auto paint store just for auto paint. So we will be going to Sherwin-Williams. We know what color we're going to get. That will also be an oil-based enamel paint that we will be spraying on, and that will be part of our reveal that's coming up when you actually see what the color is going to be. Argosys are really cool. They're very unique, and that's one of the reasons why we got the Argosy, was because we could paint them. But that's probably the #1 question asked and the #1 question answered on almost all Airstream Argosy renovation projects. Anyway, I hope you guys got a little value out of this video. Really super appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up. Please hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notified of our next video, especially the reveal You do not want to miss that video. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
So, citrus strip, love it, do it, go for it.